Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to tell you a little bit about a project that we've been working on for a couple of years now. It's a fairly niche opportunity, being exploration, pure exploration in Greenland, and there's not a lot of that going on at the moment. So a little bit about the company. First of all, we're a private company. We were set up 3 years ago to manage these licenses. The opportunity we picked up, there's a number of things really that are quite unique about that. It's North Sea geology, it's onshore. We have 100% effectively of the license area and control of the license area. For a frontier area, it actually contains 2D seismic already, because ARCO shot 2D seismic 40 years ago. So there's quite a bit of data on the area already, and what we're doing at the moment is processing that data and looking to move forward to the next phase of exploration there. The reason I'm here is not because at this point in time we're looking for any money. We're private, we're fully funded at the moment, but as we move into the next phase, which will be drilling, we'll be looking for an industry partner and potentially some financing to back up the drilling program. A little bit to start with on the geography. People always ask, but we are just inside the Arctic Circle. There's two screens here. If I can point to one of them. Just inside the Arctic Circle. This is Jameson Land down here. We have nearly 6,000 square kilometres of licence. To put that in context, that's a North Sea quadrant, not a North Sea block. It is a very large licence area. We're just north of the Arctic Circle. We are adjacent to the Haltenbanken area here, which is just south of the Arctic Circle. The Barents Sea up here is further north than we are. You've got the Amal Peninsula here, which is further north in the Arctic Circle, and you come round here. Better to look at this from the North Pole to get an indication of where we are. In terms of accessibility, we're probably closer to most of the markets in Europe and the eastern seaboard of the States than most. That's the geography. If we move on in more detail to Greenland itself. A couple of things about Greenland. First off, most people know that Cairn have been there and spent quite a lot of money and returned with not very much. So let's cover that first. Cairn had the licenses on the west coast here, and they were chasing a Nova Scotia geology, quite an intense program. And that didn't come to anything ultimately with them. Those licenses they're now relinquishing. The Greenland government is trying to license an area down here at the moment. Very low key, they don't seem to be making a lot of noise about it. So where is licensed in Greenland? Apart from our license down here, we've got licenses up on the eastern shelf up here. And interestingly, that has all the major players: Shell, Chevron, Eni, BP, and Statoil. This is very long term. It's in sea ice, so it's complex and it's going to be expensive to operate. But they perceive the magnitude of the reserves there worth persevering with and looking for a solution to that. Interestingly, we have the same geology on the same shelf further south. And the key point for us is that we are onshore, not offshore. We're not bound by sea ice. You have access to here through the seas. And we're not covered in ice. The ice shelf is in the centre of Greenland here, so really quite accessible. If we move on to the data that we've got for what is effectively a frontier license, we have quite a bit of data now. ARCO, back in the late 80s, shot 2D data set over 3 or 4 years, 1,800 kilometres of seismic, and you can see. And you can see here the coverage of the seismic. It does cover most of our license, slightly more dense in the centre of the license here. I'll come on to why that is later. The data quality looks fairly good. What we've done since then is we've reprocessed. The lines you can see here were test lines we reprocessed. They showed that with modern computer techniques and filtering, we can substantially improve the signal-to-noise ratio, have much better quality output from that. So the lines that we reinterpreted here gave a lot of encouragement that we could see more information on the seismic. And that tied in with some field work which was covered by GEOS. GEOS is the Danish and Greenland Geological Survey. Their field work showed that structurally this was a basin dipping from north to south with sediments, basically a basal Permian unconformity with a sequence coming up through Triassic into the Jurassic. And they see some structural elements running through the southern part of the license here that have ultimately ended up with the basin appearing to be more significant than it was in Arco's day. That is thicker, deeper, and therefore more opportunity for A, holding hydrocarbon, and B, the generation of hydrocarbon. It's been deeper for longer than they had expected before. So tying in the field work and the structural work with the reinterpretation of the seismic, we could see that we were looking beyond the seismic here at some interesting structural elements here. How could we best delineate those in the near term? This summer we've acquired a full tensor gravimetric survey over the whole license and increased the density of the survey over the southern part of the license to tie down certainly where we can see the basement and the structural component in here. Now, we haven't finished that interpretation, but the field interpretation is currently very encouraging. We see that we have a large kitchen area down here. We have some what look like some tilted fault block events in here. Up in this part of the license, there's very little faulting, very little structural activity. To move on from the existing data to the field data to field work, and one of the great things about having an onshore license is that we can actually walk over and the plays and the source rocks that we actually see in the license. Up to the north of the license, outside our license area, you have an outcrop of the, this is the basal Permian unconformity. These are Permian reef carbonates, and they're covered by Permian source rock in here. So you have the advantage of being able to sample one of your potential reservoir plays, sample the source rock, and this is the same for the Triassic and the Jurassic sequence as well. This is a sequence of Upper Jurassic sandstones, which is an extraordinary quality of sandstone. I've never seen anything like it, 30 meters thick of effectively a gravel, wonderful reservoir. So on the license, you can actually go and touch, sample a lot of the data. So we've, in terms of our play concepts, we're able to put a lot more confidence into them than you would do on a standard frontier type exploration. In terms of direct hydrocarbon indicators, we actually have on the license a number of, there's bitumen seeps around to the north, which is exactly what you'd expect. That's where the base Permian unconformity is outcropping. So any hydrocarbon that's been generated, we think it's light hydrocarbon, but at surface it'll be biodegraded. We have gas seeps moving down to oil seeps here. In Greenland there's been quite a bit of mineral activity, mineral exploration, and the mineral explorers use shallow coring techniques. One of these shallow cores drilled down here recovered a core in the Upper Jurassic. There's a belemnite here, and that was bubbling oil out of it, as you can see, and oil stained here. We were able to take this oil sample and type the oil, and this oil is effectively, thank you very much, identical to the Haltenbanken oils, which is the adjacent province on the Norwegian side. Not really a surprise, but very nice to have concrete evidence that we're looking at a very similar or the same source rock component. So we move that into a mapping phase, and to date this is based on simply the lines that we had reprocessed and then extrapolating that into the other lines. We are about 90% of the way through the reprocessing of the rest of the 2D, so this will, the prospect identification will improve in due course, and we're also just about to receive the full processing of the FTG data. So the next few months will see a substantial improvement in the quality and resolution of the data we see. But right now, we have mapped play concepts in here, 38 leads across 5 different play concepts. So there's a good spread. There's no dominant, no particularly dominant play or prospect in there. And we've got to an unrisked recoverable resource number of about 5 million barrels for those 38 prospects. And as I say, they're typically 200, 300, 400 million barrel type prospects, and they tend to be stacked. So any well will be able to target 2 or 3 of these at any one time. Now, very high numbers, big numbers, and so I don't want to make a big fuss about that. At the moment, we need to do more of our work, and in particular, we're focusing on a lot on the basin modelling, the timing of hydrocarbon generation. We know that most of the hydrocarbon that's been generated is likely to be oil. About 75% plus is oil and some gas, so that's positive. So really a very, very encouraging prospectivity. And we're now beginning to move towards thinking about the next phase and what we might drill. Different horizons in different colours. You can drill wells through here down to about 3 kilometres that will target 3 or 4 of the different play concepts. So where we are now in the licence, I won't go through the details of the licence there, but there's 3 phases over 10 years. The first phase for 3 years we've just about finished. Moving into the next phase of the licence, middle of next year. We've satisfied the phase 1 commitments. Phase 2, we will be looking at either seismic or drilling. We think probably drilling, given the maturity of the data. That'll be 30 to 50 million in total. We're thinking the way forward with that is to look for an industry partner. The reason for being here is to start to raise the profile. We're doing the same within the industry forum prospects in a month or so's time. Bring in an industry partner and potentially bring in with that some external investment as well. Whether we stay private or list, we're not committed either way at this point in time. So I'll leave you with that now. If you have any questions, I'll be outside in my little booth, in my bouncy castle out there. Do come and have a word. Thank you for your time.
Round of applause for Mark, please. Thank you.